During later investigations, Antoine's Arizona ID card was found on the floor of the car.
Moron, your bus is leaving. What the fuck? If you're going to commit a crime, come on, guys. Be a little better at it than this. I mean, leaving your ID in the car? That's not me. That's my brother. What the fuck?
Determining if the murders were committed with intent or in self-defense.
Okay, bullshit. I'm just saying. 4 people's lives were ended and it was self-defense? I highly doubt it. Premeditation can form in an instant. If you shoot somebody on the side of the head, and then you shoot another person, you make sure that everybody in the room is dead, I think you've got some pretty good premeditation there. They've got him coming and going. This is not the brightest criminal on the planet.
You can even see one of the deceased victims in the passenger seat while those bodies are in the car. Antoine is inside the gas station, paying for his gas just like it's another normal day.
That's cold and stupid.
Help hiding the bodies, so he makes plans to meet up with his father, 56-year-old dad.
Hey, Dad, I need help getting rid of 4 bodies. Can you help me out?
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your personal board-certified criminal defense lawyer. And if you're in Dublin, you know who you are. Anyway, this message is for all you guys, because guess who's behind the message? Our content genius, Michael Rivers. He is the content genius. He's the man behind the plan. I never would have started this channel ever, but it was his idea. And he has brought a community together, and it's just a lot of people that are just kind of into the same kind of true crime and just fun look at criminal law. Anyway, today we're reacting to the case of the Minnesota assassin, brought to you by Minnesota Crime. And I haven't done a reaction to this or have seen it, so this is just absolutely just a cold reaction, and we'll see what it is. But before we get to that, guess what? This is brought to you by eForms.com. eForms.com is a very effective way to stay out of court, or if you have to go to court, you have some document in writing, and you can prove your case very easily. You got to get things in writing. If you're doing a car sale, get a bill of sale, because if you're buying a car or selling a car, if you're driving a car and you don't have any documentation that you bought the car, how do you prove that you didn't steal it? You prove it because you have a bill of sale. So if you're buying a car from a private party, get a bill of sale. If you're selling a car as a private party, get a bill of sale. Power of attorney. Your grandma's in the basement. She's doing, whatever she's doing with her feet, and she's not really with it. Well, you got to take care of grandma, so you get her a power of attorney and you take care of her finances because she's making so much money with her feet. Or you do a medical power of attorney. Grandma's not doing so well, and she doesn't want to live on a machine for the rest of her life. So you give her a do not resuscitate order. You can do that through a medical power of attorney. Go to eForms.com. There's all kinds of different needs that we have for legal forms. You avoid the high cost of a lawyer, and you avoid losing in court. eForms.com. Okay. Well, let's go right to the case of the Minnesota assassin. I haven't seen this, so we'll see what it says.
This unsuspecting man is about to show just how much of a monster he really is. On September 12th, 2021, this man, 38-year-old Antoine Suggs, assassinated 4 innocent people in the middle of the night. Our small team of investigative reporters has gathered the footage and case details about Antoine and how all 4 murders came to be in order to present the whole story in its entirety for the first time ever.
So take a look at this. What is the commonality in all these photos? Well, all these little vignettes of they're all public. Well, one's a body cam, but the other ones are all surveillance. There's surveillance everywhere you go. Every single place you go. I had a homicide that happened, a homicide case that happened a few years ago. They had my client's car, and my client had very specific rims on his car, white Cadillac. And they were able to get him going here, going here, going here, going here, going here, and all the way down, his whole route. So, just a word to the wise, it's almost impossible to commit a crime nowadays without getting it on camera.
This all started very early in the morning, a few days prior, on September 8th. Antoine arrived in Minnesota via airplane from his home state of Arizona, and footage shows that nothing seems to be out of the ordinary. But that changes very soon. Antoine is picked up by an unknown person and leaves the airport with them. A few days later, on September 11th, late at night, Antoine revisits the airport in a new luxury Mercedes SUV. Later investigations report that this car was recently loaned to Antoine. It is unknown whether or not Antoine is connected to a larger organized crime group. While it's a logical hypothesis considering the value of this luxury car Antoine is now driving, we have yet to unfold the full story of this case, as it is only just heating up. We don't know why Antoine revisited the airport, but the surveillance footage gives us a glimpse at his passenger, who bears a striking resemblance to one of his future murder victims, Nitosha Lee Flug Presley. If the passenger is indeed Nitosha, then this was one of the last images showing her alive. According to a complaint filed by an anonymous person, a witness said they saw Antoine and Nitosha taking shots together at a bar just hours after.
So, when it comes to homicide, there's a lot of reasons for it. You can have, a domestic dispute. You can have a physical altercation that, results into a homicide, that happens spur of the moment. You can have revenge. You can have jealousy. You can have all kinds of different motivations for a homicide. And you can have contract killings. There's a whole array of motivations. But guess what? They don't have to prove motive in a homicide. Motive is never an element. The intention is, and the premeditation can be, but motive is never an element of the crime.
Left the airport. Records also show that Nitosha's aunt told investigators that Antoine and Nitosha were romantically involved. Putting all this information together, it's becoming more and more likely that this passenger is indeed Nitosha. After a night of drinking, it is believed that Antoine and Nitosha went to a residence in St. Paul, where they spent time with 3 other people who would soon become Antoine's other 3 future murder victims. They were Lois Foreman III, Matthew Pettis, and Jasmine Sturm. Just hours later that same night, now the very early morning of September 12th, surveillance footage caught this altercation sometime around 3:30 a.m. in St. Paul, Minnesota. In this footage, we hear gunshots and then that same Mercedes car speed through the streets. It is clear this is when the murders happened. But what?
It's incredible, the amount of cameras, honestly. Whether it's Ring cameras or surveillance cameras, everywhere you go, there are cameras.
Antoine does after this is quite shocking. On the same day around 10 a.m., after driving around for many hours trying to figure out what to do with the dead bodies, Antoine decided that he needed help hiding the bodies. So he makes plans to meet up with his father, 56-year-old Darren Osborne.
Hey, Dad, I need help getting rid of 4 bodies. Can you help me out? What would you say to your child if your child called you and asked you that? You know what you should say? Oh, sure, I'll be right there, and then call the police.
Osborne at a gas station during the day. Antoine's plan was to have his father follow him into western Wisconsin to a cornfield where they would find an inconspicuous place to dump the car with the bodies in it. Osborne later told officers that he had no idea at this point there were bodies in Antoine's car.
I don't care what happened, but there would never be a good cause to end the life of 4 people. They're just, I'm a peaceful guy. I couldn't raise my hand to anybody.
On the way to meet with his father, Antoine stops at a different gas station than the one planned for the meetup spot.
And gas stations, guess what? More surveillance. Fuck.
In this disturbing surveillance footage that shows this particular stop, you can even see one of the deceased victims in the passenger seat, limp and showing no signs of life. And while those bodies are in the car, Antoine is inside the gas station, paying for his gas just like it's another normal day.
That's fucking cold and stupid. If you see somebody like slouched over, you probably think they're just sleeping. But I just can't believe that.
Antoine continued traveling to the meetup spot, moving from St. Paul, Minnesota to Dunn County, Wisconsin. This time, stopping at the originally planned gas station. We see him and his father convene at the gas station and they speak a bit before driving away. It is presumed Antoine had now moved the body out of the front passenger seat, considering his father would have clearly noticed a deceased human being sitting in the car. That is, if Antoine's father is telling the truth. Again, at this point, according to the father, he did not know what Antoine was up to. However,
you know, a dad knows their son. A dad knows their son. And how would you not think he's up to something? Why would you be going to a cornfield in the middle of Wisconsin from St. Paul? I mean, what? Is he looking to maybe buy a thresher? Is he looking to buy some farm equipment? I probably don't think so.
it is reported that Antoine allegedly confessed to his father, soon after the meetup, that he had snapped and shot the victims. At this point, it's becoming more and more difficult for Antoine's father to deny his involvement with this situation.
And guess what? If Dad did know, and Dad's doing things with his son in concert after the fact, he's aiding an offender after the fact, which means he's on the hook for half of what the underlying crime is. And if we're looking at 4 possibly life sentences, he's looking at a boatload of time, just a boatload of time.
Antoine and his father allegedly went on to hide the car with the bodies in it in a cornfield further into Wisconsin. It is reported that a local anonymous farmer found the abandoned Mercedes in a cornfield in Dunn County, Wisconsin. He very quickly reported it to the police. At this time, no one knew of Antoine's or his father's involvement.
Well, let's see here. What is on every vehicle? A vehicle identification number, right? So, I mean, you abandon this vehicle in a cornfield. You don't think that they're able to just trace it back? I mean, look, they found the surveillance footage at the gas station. They've got him coming and going. This is not the brightest criminal on the planet.
However, we do have body cam footage that details some of the officers' experiences investigating the car in the cornfield with the deceased victims in it. What they find is extremely brutal.
I guarantee you it doesn't smell good in that car.
We're gonna go in right here. Yeah, we can do something. We did open the back door. If you need to open the back door.
Do we know if that one in the back on the far right is male or female?
Do you know? The one on the far back? The behind the driver?
I thought it was a female.
So they were stiff when you moved them?
Yes.
Somebody said?
I opened that door. I basically went like this, and it was just, hard, stiff, rigor, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, the male, we didn't check anything on him. I thought there was like a hole. Looks like there might be blood pooling in his ear, or I thought maybe that was an entry or exit wound. I'm not sure. Thank you, guys.
And the reason they didn't, dig a hole like you see in the mob movies, just too much work.
Yep.
I ran out. Well, it looks like if the actual key started on push button too. There's no keys in the ignition. A whole bunch of blood on their shoe. See that?
Yeah, it's pooled, yeah. Definite bullet wound to the right side of the face, right side of the...
So let's talk about the charges, the potential charges, because I have no idea what the charges are going to be. But I have an idea. For sure, second-degree intentional murder. The only issue then it becomes whether it was first-degree murder. In other words, was this premeditated? Now, remind you, premeditation can form in an instant. And if you shoot somebody on the side of the head, and then you shoot another person, you make sure that everybody in the room is dead, I think you've got some pretty good premeditation there. It doesn't have to be that I thought about this yesterday. It can happen in the moment.
On him.
Male?
On the male.
That's what I thought.
These officers are taking careful note of entry and exit wound details for a very important reason. This detail alone is extremely helpful in determining if the murders were committed with intent or in self-defense.
I mean, that's
Okay, bullshit. I'm just saying. 4 people's lives were ended and it was self-defense. I highly doubt it. And then you put them all in a fucking car and put it in a band in the car in the cornfield. Self-defense, not going to happen.
looks like an entrance wound right there.
It didn't look like an exit wound to me. I'm guessing she got shot in the body, though. Yeah, there's blood on her left arm and on her right, and it's old. Watch your right shoulder, man.
Yep.
Oh, what's in the pocket, Dan?
There. Dried blood.
blood,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's dripping right now.
Oh yeah.
Male. And shot wound to the head. Like, yep. There's the exit wound over here. See on the front seat,
Yeah.
right below, right where the shoulder rest is, that white stuff, is that brain matter or skull particulates?
It's hard to say. Cause she wearing her seatbelt still?
No,
I couldn't
it's-
tell if
it
it
was-
was just
I think they put it
behind
behind
her.
her.
Behind her.
Just probably so that it wouldn't beep. Because the weight's in there, so it'd beep.
I want to know where the gunshot wound is on this other gal. How do you have exit wounds and there's no damage in the vehicle? Well then, but also if it's a
Because they were shot someplace else and then put in the vehicle and transported there, and the vehicle was abandoned.
Headshot, wouldn't she have splatter? I mean, you got splatter on him, but it's just weird.
well, his is coming from his nose. You know, that's just draining from the nose from the brain.
Here's one of the things that I don't like is all this banter, because, when you have a case like this, they want to admit this footage. Well, everything they're saying is not admissible in evidence because they're absolutely speculating as to what happened. They're not doing any scientific tests. They're not doing any kind of trajectory analysis. They're not doing any. Remember the YNW Melly case when they do, have all those rods going every which way. But there's no bullet holes. So clearly they were shot someplace else, and then they were transported there.
Yeah.
Alright, well. Did we look through the... Well, let's just get out of here, I guess. We'll go talk to Kyle.
During later investigations, Antoine's Arizona ID card was found on the floor of the car, covered.
Moron, your bus is leaving. What the fuck? I mean, if you're going to commit a crime, come on, guys. Be a little better at it than this. I mean, leaving your fucking ID in the car? Yeah, that's not me. That's my brother. What the fuck?
In blood. This pointed the officers directly to him and later his father as well, as more information was discovered after they reviewed the previously shown surveillance footage. Officers arrested Antoine's father first, and then charged Antoine with 4 counts of hiding a corpse. Antoine, now back in Arizona, turned himself in to the Arizona authorities. Antoine would now be brought back to St. Paul, Minnesota, the city where he committed the murders. This is where his dramatic legal trial would take place. Over the course of the next few days of Antoine's trial, he claimed, incredulously, that he acted in self-defense in the killing and transporting of the 4 victims, which the prosecutor...
The thing that cuts against that is, number 1, he didn't call the police. Number 2, he transported the body someplace else. And number 3, he just tried to cover up his crime. That's not somebody who acts in self-defense. One of the things you have to show in self-defense are a couple things in Minnesota. Number 1, that there was no other reasonable alternative. In other words, you had to kind of do this. The other thing you have to show is that it depends upon if he was in his dwelling or not. If you're in the dwelling, you don't have to show that you were fleeing, but you have to show that a felony was about to be committed. And so I would be shocked with 4 homicides if he was going to be able to get the instruction on self-defense. If you were lucky enough to get the instruction on self-defense, then the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you didn't act in self-defense. So the burden is on the state to prove a negative. So I'll give you an example of that. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes the damage is just so great. I had a client who was at a nightclub in downtown Minneapolis, and a rival gang member started some shit, and so they had a fight. And then my client had a gun on him. The other guy had a gun on him. They both drew their guns. There was nobody behind my client. There were all kinds of people behind the other guy. They both started shooting. The one guy shot at my client 13 times. Didn't hit him. Hit a motorcycle. Hit all kinds of other stuff. Then my client returned fire, and they're shooting at each other almost simultaneously. And my client hits 9 people. Kills 2. Kills the guy that he was shooting at, and kills another kid a block away on a stray bullet. And it was a kid that was just graduated from college. And my client got convicted of everything. Didn't get the benefit of the doubt of self-defense. And I still believe to this day that he was self-defense, that he was acting in self-defense. It ain't like this.
Prosecutors stated that they find improbable. Antoine has had a lengthy history of breaking the law, including multiple instances of unlawful possession of a firearm, possession of marijuana in a vehicle, driving with a suspended license, and much more. Even though Antoine had never racked up any charges nearly as serious as murder, this made it quite clear that Antoine is no stranger to criminal activity. During the trial, Antoine never gave any reason other than self-defense. He said the 4 victims were attempting to rob him, claiming he was the victim in this situation. However, going back to what the police learned about the entry and exit wounds of the bullets in the bodies, it's obvious this is definitely not a case of self-defense. Even though no one believed Antoine's excuse, he still gave no other reason as to why he did this. So we may never know his true motive behind murdering the 4 innocent victims. The jury.
And you don't just get a self-defense instruction because you want it. There has to be some showing that you were acting in self-defense. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to be some showing. But I would be shocked in this case if the judge actually gave him self-defense.
After 6 hours of deliberation, decided that Antoine was found guilty on all 4 counts of second-degree intentional murder and was sentenced to 103 years in prison. His father, Darren Osborne, was charged with 1 count of aiding an offender. After pleading guilty, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. These are the jury verdicts that show Antoine being found guilty on all 4 counts of murder. Judge Paul Harris, the judge who sentenced Antoine, told him this: "Each one of these individuals deserves that you serve time for each one of them." What do you believe could have possibly been Antoine's motive for killing these 4 innocent people? Let us know what you think.
So he got 103 years. That's basically 25 years each. A little more than 25 years each. A little over 300 months apiece. And so he probably got sentenced to all 4 counts consecutively. They didn't add any counts for premeditation. And probably because it seemed like spur of the moment, but it was intentional because you could tell by where the gunshots were. And it wasn't, and all of his shenanigans about hiding the bodies and all that kind of stuff, that's all consciousness of guilt, not somebody who's acting in self-defense. So I just don't understand how some people can just hurt people like this. But it is part of this criminal world, and let's just hope that we don't ever find ourselves resorting to anything like that, or resorting to anybody, or being around anybody who does resort to something like that. So we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for Patreon. See you later, Clota.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, police is at my god.